why am I joining this industry? It felt a bit weird. But when I saw all that data, I remember, I think it was 2011, and I just went to Ewout, who was the chief legal officer at Kindred, and I told him, I want to detect people. I want to see if they develop problems. I want to help them from the start. And this was a concept that I don't think anyone had looked into it at the time. It was very, very novice.
And I can imagine that many companies wouldn't let anyone to look into it.
Exactly. But for some weird reason, and I think it's because he's crazier than I am, he said, sure, go ahead. And it just then...
Hi, Maris. How
Hi.
you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. It has been a nice few days here in Malta. Yeah, but I think it was enough. I was just saying that I'm looking forward a little bit to less sun. It has been a long summer.
It's been very hot here. It's been very hot.
Yeah, but at least we made it for having a discussion together. So thanks for being here. Thanks for finding a time.
Nice.
There is a lot that we could talk about. And I'm gonna break the regular structure of these podcasts, and I will ask straight away for the most recent thing that you are engaging with, and it's LeoVegas,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You are the new director of player sustainability. And the first question would be, why? Why did you decided to work with the industry operator again? And don't take me in a bad way. I'm not asking you that in a bad way,
Okay.
because you have a lot of qualities, you have a lot of talent, you have a lot of impact that you can create. So I wouldn't even say that it's a good thing, but I'm curious why.
Of course. I was consulting for 3 years. I honestly was loving it. It was getting very busy, but I didn't have like the usual maybe anxiety a self-employed person would have. So I was getting good income, I was getting a lot of projects. It was really interesting as well because I was getting the opportunity to work with so many different companies. So before, I've never had worked with lotteries, for example. I was doing something on cyber psychology. I was teaching at university, so it was quite a nice package.
Diverse stuff, right?
Yes, I love that. Work-life balance wasn't there though, because I would cram everything in. But then Leo actually asked me if I can do some consultancy. So I had known Noel, who's the COO, for quite a while. We had been in previous panels together. He had come to one of my trainings years before. And when they approached me, I said, obviously, yes, it sounds really interesting. And I hadn't really worked with another organization which was quite as big with the online industry. And yeah, when I went in the office, I just fell in love with the culture, honestly. So the first time I had to go, and usually when I go to a new place, I get very, not anxious, I get a bit shy. So, like, you don't know the people, even sometimes just to ask where the bathroom is, sometimes, like, something really big to do.
You need some time to warm
Yes,
warm up a
yes.
little, right?
And I don't know, the first day I went and I met the RG team there and I met all the staff and they were telling me like, oh, we want to do this and we want to do this. And like I left there so motivated, but I knew I was there as a consultant, so I wasn't doing anything like to even try to get a job there. But it was, I know it felt a bit like home, which is very weird.
Wow.
And I was going there because they were asking me for advice, obviously. And I also loved the culture where, like, if I would say it should be green, they would just say, okay, then it should be green. Whereas in previous years, in previous companies, if I would say that, they would need proof, like, why are you saying this?
Right.
But there was such a level of trust, there was such a motivation for change that I kind of missed being part of the change. So then when Noel approached me if I want to take the role, it was a very difficult experience. And in fact, I told him if he had approached me and I wasn't a consultant there, I don't think I would have thought twice and would have just said, no, I'm comfortable as a consultant. But once I touched the environment and the people there, I'm like, yeah, I want to be part of it now.
It's so enjoyable to listen to you talking about that, and you're smiling all the time.
Yes, I'm really happy. At first, I thought, crap, I'm going to do a bad choice, like, will it be, I'm going back full time, I'm going back to these things. And the fact I remember when we were discussing, I said, I still want to teach at university because I teach some lectures there. I still want to do some research on the side. And there was never like a no or anything. It's like, yes, for sure, this is part of you as well. This is who you are. And it just felt like, okay, I think this would be a good choice for me.
I think that it's quite unique because
Yeah.
what I am hearing from different people and the RG spectrum, right? RG spectrum, RG area, working for operators, they are often pretty tight. Pretty tight on like they can focus only on the job, and there are certain rules about public appearances and public speakings. Even the fact that you don't see many RG people at conferences. I mean, you do. You would see um, a couple of them. I mean, a handful of them. Mostly the same people all around, but
Me
almost
being
every.
one of them.
Yeah, right. But at least it's creating a good community.
Yeah.
But almost every company has an RG manager at some point and some level with some competencies, but they never show up, not even to listen to discussions. So it feels like that mostly they keep these people sitting in their offices doing the work. So it's good to hear that there is an inspiration for a company that does it differently and to see what impact it has, because
Yeah.
the look at you,
That's true.
it's just great.
No, it's true. I think it also has to do with the management totally, because even when I joined, like officially, I think in the first week I was telling Noel, I want to do this and I want to do this, and I never really got a no. So it was like, okay, I see this, okay, and there's a level of trust that you don't see it a lot with other maybe
Yeah.
heads of RG or RG managers. There's a very good team as well, which I fell in love with. So I'm good with operational stuff, but I'm more good with strategy, with ideas. And I think with them, like it's a really good puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
So I can use the creative energy, and I need to use creativity because otherwise it will drive me nuts if I don't.
Yeah, this is moving us to the next question. That would be like, what are you responsible for? What are you doing? Is it about building a new strategy, about increasing the of all the stuff that has been implemented there regarding player protection? So what is your task?
My task, I think it would be obviously they're already doing a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't need to reinvent the wheel, which is quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that before.
Yeah.
But I think my overall is owning that player sustainability journey to look into the customer. And I love that, looking into not only into responsible gambling as a, how do I say, like sometimes when we look into RG, we always consider the negative
Yeah.
side. So it's always like only on self-exclusions, only on how many people are detected. Rather, it's more looking into the holistic approach.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we protect customers at an earlier stage? How can we optimize the customer journey? How can we look into actual sustainability? So it's not a lip service.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just you're getting someone there to look good. It's actually you're there to make change.
So it sounds that you touch different areas. So
Yeah.
it would be, and how I imagine it, let's say a blend of the commercial part, which is like these customers are here to have fun, they are here to spend money with us, but as an inevitable part or as a like a un the part that cannot be disconnected is that they need to be spending in a reasonable manner, and we should prevent them to going down the path of gambling addiction. So do you also consider this aspect? I mean, it's like a collaborative work inside of the company.
Yes, I think a lot of people who work in RG might find it really difficult to get internal buy-in, but I always like to split it between proactive and reactive.
Yeah.
RG. If you're very reactive, if you let people get to the point where they get addicted or they spend too much, then obviously you will look like the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're very proactive in your approach, you're actually ensuring sustainability. It's like sometimes I'm asked or I look back in my work and like they would tell me, how could you have had so much buy-in to look into markers of harm
Mm-hmm.
or into detection? But it's just tying everything in. Because if you are very proactive with your responsible gambling, you are very commercially good.
Mm-hmm.
If you manage to help a person from the start to regulate their gambling, you have a customer who stays for longer.
Yeah.
And that's much more difficult than acquiring customers.
Mm-hmm.
To have a loyal customer, to have that loyalty is much harder than anything else.
Yeah, but it's going to pay out in the
Yes,
future,
exactly.
right? And
Exactly.
basically, what they are going to achieve is a more stable, reliable pathway forward, relying on the, how it's called, lifetime value of the
Exactly.
customers.
I compare it to imagine if you go out for a drink and you go to a bar and you just keep on drinking and drinking and you get too drunk and then the next day you have a hangover. You might have had fun the day before, but you will still associate that with, oh no, I drank too much or it was too much for me.
Yeah.
But if, let's say, you go to a bar and they do understand that you have a tendency to maybe drink a bit too much,
Mm-hmm.
and instead they offer you free water or they put some food on the
Yeah.
table, you might stay there longer. You might actually drink more, but at the end of the day, you're not having that negative connotation to your experience. So I think it's just until we get that balance and that's why I also like the fact that they didn't give me the title of director of RG. It was director of player sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
Even their approach of thinking of, okay, this is the role that we want. We want someone who's looking into an overall perspective, not come here and be like the police person, but
Yeah.
come here and let's enhance everything. Let's work together.
Yeah, I like the analogy with the water between beers. I
Yes.
think the first time I heard it was from Mary Donahue.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it really fits. I mean, you can change that water for many different things in iGaming, but the result should be ultimately the same, right? What you want to achieve is, or there's another bold statement, and which was, I think I heard it on some poker festival or somewhere, that we want to keep people spending, but we want to make them spend more, I mean, longer.
Yes.
So to make them spend in smaller amount, but for a longer time. And it's like, it might sound bad, but it is what it is. I mean, if people want to gamble, this is in a summary best approach towards it.
I compare it to my mother's shopping habits, for example.
Mhm.
Like you have all these massive supermarkets here, and she will still go and buy from the little grocery shop where she lives. And I always think to myself, like, why do you go there? Like some of the products might be more expensive because obviously big supermarkets will have more discounts. You have more variety from the supermarkets. But then I realized that she goes there for the social aspect.
Mhm.
And the fact that she can stay there and she can chat with the others, that's what
Right.
she's getting out of
Mhm.
it. And she's a lifelong customer with them. So even if it gets pricier or if there's not that variability, the need that she's getting out of it is accentuated because of the setting as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you are saying it because there are so many companies which are still staying in that traditional view on gambling
Yeah.
that we shouldn't be mentioning responsible gambling or rather say anything related gambling harm to the customers because we would scare them off and they wouldn't want to play with us. We just need to focus on the fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it just won't work in a couple of years because
For sure.
this, Leo is a tier one company.
Mm-hmm.
These companies have influence. They are not the only ones that are doing it. And sooner or later, the customers are going to change. Their expectations are going to change. And those that will focus on the fun part, right? Fun is just, just spend the money and don't
Yeah.
ask questions.
Yes.
They will die out because the expectation, it will change. So I speak or I think about it quite a lot about like how to inspire these companies that are not required to do it. Perhaps they will be from jurisdictions with less RG requirements, but they still want to be providing a good business. And I think it's also a generational change of the leaders that they would understand that this is
Yes.
something that they need to do. And I was wondering why companies like LeoVegas are not sharing more, let's say, examples or which evidence that this is working. And then someone told me, like, why would they do it? It's an competitive edge, right? We wouldn't share the data that taking care of customers is actually commercially viable to us because then we will give away our advantage to others, which kind of makes sense. So I guess it will just have to move
I
the
think
direction of
slowly,
change.
slowly they might start sharing. I've only been there 3 months, so that's also a big difference. But I think some companies, you see that there is a bit more sharing of this information. There's more visibility maybe from people as well. I think very interesting that you mentioned even the generational differences, because the younger generation goes for the more, I don't know if you can call it ethical, but they go for always the more ethical businesses. So even if you show that you as a company actually care, it will make a difference.
Yeah.
I like to use analogies. And once I remember I was in Greece in the airport. And what's the worst part of being in the airport? Usually the security.
Of
So
course, yeah. Everybody hates that.
exactly. But you would think that if there's no security, you would enjoy it. And we were walking, and at one point I thought, oh God, there's no security. So I was not feeling comfortable that there would be no security. But then we went through it, and it was just quite smooth. And I realized there and then it's like we still seek protection. We still seek to have these type of frameworks. Even if we don't like a seatbelt, we still put it on. But if you maybe speak to my father, who's 74, he might not really like a seatbelt, whereas I always put it on. And I think it makes a big difference as well. The newer generations, they know their rights, they know what they want. They know that, companies are also responsible.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think you should just accentuate that.
Yeah, I think so. And they like to be smart around things.
Yes.
I mean, about things. Like they do not want to get fooled. And I think it's a very good predisposition for the gambling part. Even though you read a lot of analysis updates that young children are engaging in gambling, and it shouldn't be like that, but it's very difficult to stop it. But for me, this generation is quite promising for the overall decrease of the gambling-related harm because they would be expecting something else and they wouldn't want to get sucked into the
Yeah.
gambling whirlwind without, mindful approach to it. So I'm quite positive on this. This is usually where we end with some positive connotations. So now we start with it. That's quite good. Last thing I wanted to ask is the sustainability part. Because it's in my job title as well, and I get asked quite often, like, what do you mean, like sustainable gambling? Like, what's that?
Yeah.
And I think it's quite good in a semantic way. I mean, to be honest, I am a bit fed up with the word. It's like, I don't know, like it sounds, but it is what it is. It describes it very good in my perspective. But I'll be curious from your perspective. What does it mean, sustainable gambling?
I think, in my opinion, because the word responsible gambling, there was safer gambling, there's so many different things and so much focus on the terminologies. I like player sustainability because it's focusing on, first of all, the player. So it's not per se just gambling. So it's more customer centric. And it's also looking more into long term. So it's looking into how can this behavior be sustainable for you? And if a behavior is sustainable, then it is. responsible.
Yeah.
So if I choose, shopping as an example, like if I go and do some retail therapy and then I have to eat noodles till the end of the month, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
But if, let's say, I want to say, okay, so this week I'm going to spend this much, and it won't impact me, and I can do this every month, then for me that's sustainable. And I think it reflects as well other initiatives. For example, if we look into CSR, if we look into environment. So overall, it's still centralized around the player,
Yeah.
but not entirely that is the player's responsibility, but also in a long-term vision rather than this quick win vision.
Yeah, I like these analogies that you are
I'm
making.
yes,
It's
that's my brain. So I'm going like this.
but it's great because then it's way easier to imagine it.
Yeah.
And I like how it goes with the human. And when you were saying this, I really imagine with a lot of things that you do in your life, because there are a lot of things which people like, but has a certain price. It could be junk food, it could be partying, it could be even sporting too much, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, and having these things in the right order so it is sustainable, so I still gain the enjoyment and I somehow limit the harm or the damage that it creates, because it is harm to some extent. Even when you go to the shop and let's say that you have high sensitivity for shoes and you buy 3 pairs instead of one. You
Yeah.
came home and you realize, oh, I did it again. I bought 3 pairs, and here it's harm, but it's not something that is gonna put you in bankruptcy.
Yeah.
But you did something that you shouldn't. You realize that you might change your behavior afterwards. Yeah. So I think it sums it up pretty good. Let's take a step back now,
Okay.
because your career in online gambling is quite huge. So you were talking about the consultancy work, which was before Leo.
Yeah.
Leo? Is it Leo? Leo, right?
Leo.
LeoVegas.
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully we're pronouncing it well. Yes.
Okay,
it's
they
Leo
might correct
Vegas.
us. But you started with Kindred.
Yep.
You worked there for 13 years full time and then some time as a consultant afterwards. And I know that you started as a fraud analyst,
Yes.
but already during the time or at that time, you were studying psychology, right?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your start of the journey, because what we do in this podcast always is we are looking into the why. What
Okay.
was there at the beginning? Why the person has started in online gambling, but then like what keeps them going? So how was your start? How does this journey look like?
Okay. So I started in 2009. So it was still, I think the gambling industry was still starting in Malta. The reason why I I got my degree in psychology, and I decided I want to do a master's immediately after. And I was very proud and I want to pay it for myself and everything. So I was doing like 4 part-time jobs, as most students do. And I don't think anyone will say that they started in the industry like this. We used to hang out in this garage where we used to play rock music. And
Sounds cool.
and the guys were jamming and I was just stuck and the girls just looking at each other. So I always used to carry a deck of cards with me. And I told them, oh, let me teach you poker because it's fun. And this guy, he was working at Unibet, so Kindred, and he said, "Oh, you know how to play poker? You should join us as a fraud analyst because we look a lot into chip dumping and collusion." I'm like, "Yes, that sounds really interesting." So I went for the interview, and I still remember because obviously I didn't know the industry, so I had like really silly memories are coming up. Like I had purple hair here. And I remember trying to hide it to look corporate and everything and not like wearing everything black, some color, not to look too gothic. And during the interviewer actually said, "Oh, I can see your purple hair. It's so nice." I'm like, "Okay, this is different to all my other work that I've done." And I joined, and they liked me, and they said, "Sure, no problem." And I still remember during the interview, I was with George Brinkat, one of the best people you can work with in the industry, and I remember him saying like, "Oh, but you might get your master's degree and leave," which he was right because that was the plan.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted a job to pay my master's. And I said, possibly, it might happen, but I will give very good 2 years. Like, I am a very hard worker. And then I started. And obviously, at the time, being a psychology student, trying to become a psychologist, I was still doing a lot of voluntary work. So I had seen addiction cases. I had also a family member who had a gambling addiction. So for me, it was also a bit, why am I joining this industry? It felt a bit weird. But I'm also a nerd. And when I saw all that data, I remember, I think it was 2011, and I just went to Ewout, who was the chief legal officer at Kindred, and I told him I want to detect people. I want to see if they develop problems. I want to help them from the start.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a concept that I don't think anyone had looked into it at the time. It was very, very novice.
And I can imagine that many companies wouldn't let anyone to look into it.
Exactly. But for some weird reason, and I think it's because he's crazier than I am, he said, sure, go ahead. And it just then, yeah, I stuck there for 13 years. I managed to do the innovation as before, like the creative thing was really good. So then I became RG manager and I continued since 2011 on this topic.
I think that they were lucky to have you because
Oh,
it was at the time when responsible gambling agenda was not that not developed, but I would say expected.
it wasn't that descriptive.
What do you mean descriptive?
Because now I think if you start in RG now, you have a lot
right.
of how you should do things.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky enough to start in a period where it wasn't that descriptive. So I can test, I can try things.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm looking into how to detect chasing losses, no regulator was going to come and tell me, no, you have to do it like this. So I could experiment a bit.
Right.
And the data is amazing because it's all objective.
Mm-hmm.
So even during that time, there was a shift in the research world where before, if you were studying gambling, you would get like a number of students, you give them fake money, they have to test these things. Instead, you go there, and as a nerd, it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You go there and you see all those transactions. Everything is objective. You're not controlling anything. So it was just like a very good Christmas present.
I can see the excitement again. So I guess that was the thing that stuck you with it, because I can sense that there was a hesitation at the beginning, right? Is it really the right thing to go with the gambling industry? But to have this sort of excitement, it almost sounds like you kind of felt that there might be, something that you can contribute to, something that you could change, right?
Yes, yes. And at the time, again, it was quite innovative. So even doing simple things was seen as like, oh my God, what are you doing? But even the fact that, for example, I got to work with the treatment centers. So I would invite treatment centers to the office and ask them, can you help us?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sometimes I would get like internally, like, are you sure what you're doing? I'm like, yes, of course, these are the experts. Or the first time I got someone with lived experience in the office, it wasn't like nowadays, they're more integrated in the industry
Mm-hmm.
talks. But at the time, like, no one was really doing it or getting the most humbling moments. I think, for example, we got parents whose son had killed himself because of his gambling debt.
Mm-hmm.
And we just got them there. And I just wanted to show, listen, gambling can have a ripple effect. There's a lot of affected others. But it's not something that I think at any point they said, don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had this thing, maybe not good for Leo to hear this, but I always had this thing. It's sometimes better to ask for forgiveness rather than permission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So sometimes, it's good to risk it a bit.
Yeah.
Especially if you know that it will work. I didn't always know it will work, but
Right.
I was lucky.
I mean, some amount of risk needs to
Yes.
be. I mean, it's also the nature of gambling. But this is something that anyone would hardly know. I mean, people that would not work there in Kindred, they wouldn't know that the environment was like that. But what many people would know is that it is something that is reflected in their initiative on the journey to zero,
Yeah.
which at that time, in my perspective, so I'm going to tell you my perspective on that and
Okay.
how it shaped my trajectory of my work and projects that I worked on. So when I saw that, I thought of it completely disruptive in the
Okay.
industry. In a way, like they are coming out with this. This is a really great initiative. And how it shaped my perspective and my work was that it was a signal for me that this leading company is engaging in self-regulation in such a manner, doing a project that shows above and beyond of what is required there. And it convinced me that this is the trajectory that the rest of the industry is going to take. But it has failed me because the Kindred was one of the few companies, I mean, there were others as well, which were engaging in something like that. But I don't feel like that it has ended up as they would expect because what I was expecting is that it would spark the similar behavior, but companies were not doing it. It seemed to me like there could be more risks for them in doing that than benefits. And I do not want to dig very deep into this initiative because it's not the purpose of it. I would rather want to ask your perspective on the self-regulation, and if you share my perspective on that and my idea about that, why it failed. Because in my eyes, it failed. I mean, the
Yes.
self-regulation
Yes.
initiatives around the industry, not the journey to zero, not at all.
I think it really depends because I was lucky. I'm not gonna say that it was always easy because I would have, I don't know, like VIP managers going to Henrik at the time, telling him like, what is she doing? I did feel at times that I might get fired.
Mm-hmm.
I had the anxieties of being a head of RG in these situations. It wasn't always easy.
Yeah.
Um, and I was lucky because I had people like I mentioned George, like Ewout, like Henrik. They were there to support even the craziest of concepts at the time. But that's how we managed to do a lot of self-regulation, to be honest, because we at Kindred there we had launched the markers of harm detection, RG2s that were not in the license requirements. And then what came out really nicely was that a lot of these things became regulation.
Yeah,
So
that's right. That's why I wanted to make a
yeah,
clear distinction that I'm
yes,
not talking about failure with the journey to
yes.
zero, but the overall self-regulation initiatives.
Because one of the issues is that some companies go still for the quick win.
Mm-hmm.
They still think that it's best to get as much money out of a person, to think just what we can get till tomorrow. They don't understand that even when it comes to player sustainability, it has such a massive competitive advantage. Because you have to consider, for example, when all these regulatory requirements came in, a lot of companies were panicking.
Mm-hmm.
I, as a head of RG, wasn't because we already had them for 2 years.
Yeah.
So for us, it was like, okay, this is not a problem. Like, for example, when we started looking into the journey to zero, um, I remember that was just an idea because I had gone to a conference and there was a lot of talk that 60 to 80% of the money coming from the industry is coming from problem gamblers.
Oh, this is such a notorious
It
statistic.
still comes. And I remember asking, genuinely, because I was curious. I remember asking, where are you getting this number from? Because if it's true, then no company would succeed financially.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I just spend a bit of time on my desk and thinking like, okay, so we make this much money out of people who self-exclude, and that's usually a proxy measure for problem gambling.
Mm-hmm.
We were making this much money of people who close their account for addiction. And when you look into markers of harm, this much from like the highest risk, it's not that large.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, when I know I'm very visible externally, but at the time I didn't think like Kindred's going to go public with this. I just went to some people in training. I'm like, look, this is interesting. And then I remember like the comms guys and all the other was like, yes, we should go public with this. And honestly, at the time, I was shitting my pants. I was thinking like, oh my God, my name is there and everything.
Yeah, I can imagine it was a
Ah,
lot of pressure.
a lot. But the turnout was really good. And I think one of the things that really accentuated it was the honesty. So even if, let's say, there was a peak during December, it's normal. It's Christmas time. So even how the reporting was being done was very honest to a certain extent. Self-regulation within that company was working, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Will I say that regulation is not helping people in RG? No, regulation is helping a lot.
Yeah,
Because
I agree with that.
for sure that if we were still in the same regulation we had in 2012, we wouldn't have so many systems going on. We wouldn't have potentially Nectons and Mindway and Crucial, all of them flourishing as well, because a lot of people would just decide on the short-term view. But if you're a smart company, you would have self-regulated. So yeah, but I don't trust a lot of people in the industry, to be fair. There's a lot of companies that are still, in my opinion, we used to call them the cowboys.
Yeah.
I still think there are a lot of companies like that. And that's why I'm very picky who to work with.
What I wanted to bring on this was because you mentioned that statistics, and I don't remember if was 85 or 90%, whatever. And I was searching for it a couple of years ago when someone used it out of nowhere. And I remember that it was a real research, and it said that, but it's similar to the ratio 80-20.
Yes.
20% of customers in almost any industry is doing roughly 80%, and it works vice versa. So the research, or the analysis, rather say, it was showing these numbers, but there was no mention at all, nowhere, whether these people were somehow at risk or not, or whether it was somehow connected to self-exclusion, limits, closing accounts. No, nothing. But people like to pick it up and use it how they like it. And I feel like the same thing could have been happening with Journey to Zero. You mentioned the peak during the Christmas. That's very normal. We see it in our complaints as well. When people from Casino Guru think they will have a peaceful Christmas, no. It's going to be records for complaints because it's an anxious time. People are stressed. People gamble. But when someone sees that kind of a peak in an initiative like that, when the company is trying, to come out of the closet, be transparent. This is what we have. We are doing our best to suppress it, but it's just difficult to be 100 successful. The people who will want to use this piece of information in order to curse on the industry, in order to curse on the initiative, they will just pick out that number. But see, here is a peak. You didn't do anything about it. Shame on you.
Yes.
That's what I feel was one of the things that might have dissuaded other companies into doing something similar. And when I heard the interview with, I don't remember his name, he is a public policy consultant and he was working for Kindred. And he was talking about the self-regulation around the industry. And what he was saying was that the status quo for these companies have became really the safest option. So they would rather keep in it and keep, the spendings of the players as they are, not trying to educate them, not trying to ask them, because it might be scary. Like, no, let just not ask them, because the answer, we do not want to know the answer, and it's better for them rather than do the disruption and to change something. So I think it was quite unfortunate, and it was also quite unfortunate for the global self-exclusion initiative, because I kind of counted on that companies would like to, again, go above and beyond and say like, yeah, we do global self-exclusion.
Yes.
No, more risks than benefits in it.
I think sometimes even the risks that we see, we tend to, and a lot of the companies, they tend to focus more on the risks than the potential benefits. So, for example, something so simple, and I don't know why not more companies are doing. So, like in Sweden, you have to set a time limit. But then if you go in a lot of these operators, they never show you how long you've been online.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of afraid, why should we give this information to customers? But if you think, another analogy is coming, but like when I teach cyber psychology lectures at university, and I sometimes try to show like we have a suspension of reality when we're online. We forget.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times like I go on YouTube and just to listen to a music, and then I end up listening to some very weird documentary 3 hours after how to speak Mandarin with an elephant. But but when I ask students, okay, so how much time do you think you spend on Facebook daily? And most of them would be like, oh no, just an hour, or maybe half an hour. And then I tell them, okay, go check. And it's always much more.
Yeah.
So the industry is afraid to show this data, but they have to set a limit. So if we had to show actually this data, then the customer is going to set a limit which works for them.
Mm-hmm.
So at least like this, it is a very good RG approach where you're showing visibility to the customer. They would set a limit which actually works. And what does that mean? That customer doesn't need to say, crap, it's 1 hour, I need to go somewhere else. They say, okay, 3 hours is enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's more the approach. Even when you look into account histories, for example, most of the time it's just like a lot of lists.
Yeah.
And they're afraid to tell a customer, how much did you spend yesterday? But I think if you use that just to offer transparency, because this is their data, it's not your data technically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this like anxious kind of feeling like, okay, we might show them too much and they will decide they need to spend it somewhere else. But I think it's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's like the evolution, the people, and also it's from the companies are offering it to customers. So they will shape their expectation as we discussed.
Yeah.
The new generation likes to be in control. They likes to approach things smartly. I mean, just these two things, it's going to put these companies out of business.
Exactly.
Hopefully, right? But I mean, it
Yeah.
makes every sense. I mean, still, it will not completely be what's the word, and rooted. Companies that are just trying to exploit customers, they will set up an online casino for 1 month.
Yes.
I think that we won't get rid of this completely, but if the general kind of expectation, a general kind of perspective which people gamble is going to change, it will be very helpful.
We saw it as well with the finance industry, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because before, like, again, I like to analyze my family a lot because they have no choice. But if I compare again with my dad, he's always used a certain bank, and he doesn't really need to use the app that much. I rather use another one which can show me graphs, which I can see exactly what I spend on, not that I get the information 3 days after.
Exactly.
I like that visibility. I don't use the budgets,
Yeah.
but I like to see, okay, at the end of the month, this is how much I spend on
Yeah.
my books. This is how much I spend on my groceries.
Sometimes I look at them just to feel
Yes.
better, okay, this is for that. Okay, I need to put a bit more on this section.
And they have a really good one. Like this month you're spending this much compared to the previous month where you were spending much more. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting better. I deserve to go shopping, and again it goes.
And it could work, I mean, almost completely
Yeah,
the same with the
exactly.
gambling, because it's in the category of reality checks, right?
Yes.
I mean, whether it is time, whether it is spending, and it could be so sophisticated. It could show you not only how much you are spending when you are doing it, but you could even have a comparison with others. And that is gonna shape your gambling behavior naturally. You might
Yeah.
spend less, but it's gonna be more enjoyable. The thing that I miss when I'm looking at my watch and I measure my sleep with Garmin, okay, props to
Okay.
What they don't have is I don't see comparison with others. I would like to see how
Normative feedback.
yeah, how am I doing in compare with others? You know, even with what is his name? Brian Johnson, I think, the guy who is investing millions into getting younger. You know, he wants to prolong his life, and what he's bragging about is like 3 months I've had 100% sleep every night. I'm like, okay, I mean, how you compare that? So this aspect can be
Yes.
really enjoyable for
Yes.
customers, and it could be again a competitive edge for those
And there has been
customers.
a lot of research on it. Mark Griffiths and Michael Auer have done quite a bit on normative feedback. And
Tell me more about it because the research is our last stop. I mean,
no, Michael and Mark have done something around normative feedback, and you know Mark how he is when he's presenting, like you just listen to him.
yeah.
But I remember in one conference, someone asked him, "But aren't you afraid that if you see yourself spending more than others, you might then reduce it?" And Mark compared it to the electricity consumption in his household, where he knows that they spend more money than others. But for him, it's such a normal thing that it didn't impact it. He actually smiled at it. So, yes, you know, I knew this. It's the same if I had to compare, you mentioned sleep. Like, I suffer from insomnia. So, for me, if I had to have data compared to others, I'm
Oh yeah.
like, yeah, I'm screwed.
Yeah, it can be a good friend, but a bad leader, I guess,
Yes, but
because
it's fine as well because you could say like, oh, I only slept 4 hours last night. Comparatively, maybe it's not that bad, or maybe the energy levels are still
exactly.
good, so it still has potential. And again, there's so much data in the industry, and you can do so much A/B testing, but we're still very afraid to do it.
Yeah, and I think that another issue is that a lot of good research is not being translated into the
Yes.
industry, or rather say, and you know, I might be wrong, but like sort of because what do you do in research? And I'm sure you know, how you call it? It's not a comparative study, it's sort of like a literature review. So let's say you have different researches on one topic and someone somehow do a conclusion out of it. So what I'm missing is like based on all the research we have, what should be the guidelines or what should be like so as this is what we know so far, and this is how we can distillate it into, you know, what should we use. I I want to say nothing like that exists. Perhaps it does, but I cannot see that. I mean, am I wrong? Does something like that exist? And if not, why?
I think it depends on how you approach the research papers. Because if you look into, for example, some research I've done with Mark, you can see that actually we were trying to operationalize it as much as possible. But you still need that link. And I don't know many people who are academics and also work in the industry.
Link to what? You mean academia and industry?
Yes, yes. Even when it comes to researchers, I only know a few that would actually work with the industry and you can help and assist. So when I was at Kindred, I remember commissioning some research around product risk with Jonathan
Yeah.
Clark. And part of when the research was being done was, can you come to the office and explain it? That makes a huge difference because what is for an academic is totally different for someone who's working behind a screen with an operator. So even just understanding, and sometimes when you look into the research, you have so much statistics that missing link is very difficult.
Yeah.
So in order, there's a lot of research that can support the industry, but you still need someone to translate it.
And why so few of that? I mean that was a weird question. Why? But why there is not more of it? Why the link is not stronger? Why researchers work so little with operators?
There's a lot of stigma as well.
Stigma, right?
Yes. I mean, any research I've done has been with data from the industry, or I've been involved with the industry in some way. I've been I've been told like it's your, once I remember I presented this research in a conference and they asked me, the question I was asked was, but was it corrupted? And I'm there like thinking like, what? Like it's peer reviewed and everything. But there's always this connotation that if you're doing research from the industry, they might give you a bit of data or they might not give you the full data, or you're being bought. So you only find certain results.
Yeah.
Then I got even called the opposite, that I'm an anti-gambling lobbyist because I'm using data from the industry to, I wore it like a badge of honor. To be fair, I was very proud. But they might see it more as, like you're doing research and you're doing it to disrupt the industry.
Yeah.
Whereas the first time I went to, I started research with Kindred, obviously. The first time I went to Avout again, and I told him, I want to get data and I want to start publishing it, and it's going to be part of my PhD, and is it okay? And I remember telling him, but you cannot control anything.
Yeah.
Like, you have to
Mhm.
trust me. Like, you cannot tell me what to publish or not. And I remember him saying, like, what's the worst thing that you can find that we don't know? Like, it's not like you're going to come and tell us there is someone who has problems on our website. And I think that type of attitude is missing. So you need certain people to actually allow it.
Mhm.
And then at the same time, I think a lot of universities might not know the extent of data that is available.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. A lot of people can take the stance which is suitable for them and which fits their, I want to say perspective. I've said that already like 15 times. And I'm trying to say like their mindset. So it would
Yes.
fit their opinion. So this is how it is. No one is gonna, convince me otherwise. And they could do it with everything. And even with the integrity, there will be always, the opposing side. And I get it that the researchers might be afraid of it, that they might get discredited or cancelled.
Yes.
So I remember myself, it was like 2 years ago when I was reading some newspaper, and I think it was Sydney University
Okay.
doing some research for a local operator. And the language that was used by the politicians in the comments about them doing that, it was so harsh. And I know their work. They've been doing great work around decrease of government and harm for years,
Yes.
and someone without any kind of evidence, nothing, just sheer. They have data from them. They are analyzing it. There is gonna be outcome of it, and they would. I mean, I've had a feeling that I want to punch that person in the face. It was so harsh without anything. Just someone told me this. No, they are corrupted. That cannot be happening.
That's another aspect maybe why
So
some
pissed about that.
but maybe that's also another aspect why you have some people working in RG who are not that public.
Mm,
Because, social media is, I can't find a better word than bitch. I'm sorry. But I remember there were times where, like, there was an initiative where Gamban was just starting, and we started at Kindred, we started offering Gamban licenses for free to customers. And when it was published, because obviously for me, I was like, no, we need this
mm-hmm.
externally. We need to show it. Maybe other companies do it. It will make us look good. And sometimes I got so much hate mail, and I got even cyberbullied at some points. And you mentioned like they would get only a sentence. I remember there was a particular person who was taking just like snippets from what I was saying and using them
Yeah.
to show. And I might have said, we need to look not only into problem gambling,
Yes.
and then
And
that
put it out
turned
of the
out
context and then put it
exactly.
away like she is saying this and that's bad and
Yes. And I think you need a certain level of, almost nonchalance, like it's part of the job.
yeah. It's a bit risky to be out there and
Yes.
with going with your neck out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's worth it, right? I mean, look at all the achievements, look at all the progress that has been made. And it wouldn't be
Yes.
possible without people, going to the market with their skin. Um, Research. So it might be a weird question, but I put it in like, is there something around research, some specific area or something that is coming with you would consider to be highly influential, something that would change the game? Or is it more like that we will be gradually exploring areas that we've already covered, markers of harm, analysis of player behavior, and we will be able to analyze them in more detail and have more reliable procedures on how to do it in a way that the harms is going to be decreased. So I guess the question is there something groundbreaking still to be discovered? Or is it more about, doing the proper work and getting closer and closer to the destination where we will have the best idea on how to structure it?
Quite an easy question to answer.
Okay, it was a long question.
Um, I think I'm seeing quite a few new trends. For example, I mean, we talk about markers of harm, and this is something that I absolutely love and I'm a bit obsessed with. But as well, there's a lot of work going on around the product characteristics, which I really like, because sometimes when you hear regulators talking or politicians, they kind of like try to put casino in one aspect versus sports betting. Whereas, like, if you look into, for example, microtransactions, when you look into certain qualities in the product, I think that's very, very interesting. The fine line between having a product which is entertaining and addictive. So I think that is a major thing to look at because, for example, you might hear the slots are a bit too fast, and it's better to make them slower because it would reduce the addictive qualities, but that would make it very boring.
Very boring, yeah.
So I think if we had to look into more holistic approaches, more to understand the player experience, and at the same time also using more cyber psychology concepts, because we tend to forget. A lot of times we get like information from the land base because that was longer there.
Yeah.
But this is a different beast. And also with the newer generations, like they do everything online. So another example, I don't know how many times I would hear from research that the fact that the money is online, that it's a suspension of reality, that you cannot control how you lose money and stuff like that. But then I was teaching this concept at university with 20-year-olds, and they told me, no, with cash, it's the case with us. Like if I have 10 euro, I will spend it all. But on my phone, I only spend how much I want. So I think we tend to forget that the online aspect is changing a lot. Whereas if you had to compare to when I was 20 years old, even just buying clothes online would be like, really? Without
Yeah.
trying them on?
Yeah.
But nowadays, everyone's like, yes, of course. I can just return them. And the concept is, and I think that would be, I don't know if they're looking into it or if there's like research going into it, but I think that would be the next groundbreaker too.
Right, and I guess that there will always come something new,
Of course.
which will need to be explored. So now, some might even say that we are past crash games, right? And I saw a very like meaningful analysis on why crash games are so popular, and it was done by Simo Dragicevic
Okay.
with his work around, I think it's Game Safety Institute,
Yeah.
and he was explaining different aspects of that being so simple, of that being engaging, because you just have the rocket or whatever, or a plane
Yes.
coming down, and you never know when it crashes. You can see the multiplier, which is very engaging, like you know right away how much you are earning. And then also you have that kind of a false feeling of control that you are going to decide. I mean, you can decide, but you never know when it's end. And the last thing that I remember was the social aspect, because you see others and you see when others, stopped, whether they crashed or how much did they brought out of it. And it feels like that the environment is ever expanding or
Mhm.
shrinking, or rather say changing.
Yeah.
So we'll have to keep the pace with it. We are running out of time, and I didn't want to run this for like hour and a half, even though we could be talking for 3 hours, I think.
Probably.
What would I like to ask? Right. Yeah, we've had a positive connotation before, but I'm curious, what would you say is the right approach on how to, how I'm going to ask this? What should be the right combination of things from the regulators, operators, people who are in research, people who are in support, I mean, help industry, help environment?
Yeah.
What should be like a collective action that we can do together in order to successfully and gradually decrease gambling related harm?
I think it's very stereotypical, potentially what I'm going to say, but it's just to collaborate. It's so simple, but honestly, um, you should have like an academic focus still. It's the research is there, it's analysis, it's usually done with a large number of customers. You can do so much, A/B testing, so many things. So I think the foundation should still be academic. And if you're not an academic yourself, you can always contact academics. They love to talk about the research
Yeah,
because no one reads our research, so we want people to read it.
I do, but just the abstract.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I don't know how many times I've been told
I don't
this.
understand. You know, like when you scroll more than 2 pages, I'm done. You know, I don't understand it. So
And this
abstract's
is why you think it can't be operationalized then. I had a lot of people telling me, I read your research, the abstract. Okay. No, I think it should still have a very scientific background, a scientific foundation. Then it's having people who are trusted to push a bit the boundaries and then collaborate. So speak to lived experience, speak with regulators. There shouldn't be this fear that if you say something to a regulator, it will be bad. Because most of the time, I never had that situation. I think never had I had that situation, to be honest. Like, you would go to a regulator, tell them, listen, I want to look into this. And they usually are very receptive because they know that you're doing something that might advance, that might help them. Engage more, even internally. Don't be afraid to invite others to speak. So, like, coincidentally, last week, we had Jonathan come to the LeoVegas office.
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
Yes, and he
Very neat
presented.
meeting room, very
I know,
nice.
I
Oh
know.
my God.
It's not me. It's not my head for sure. So Jonathan was there to explain product risk, the research. And I did tell him, listen, this is the first time that we're having an academic, and it was all understandable. And a lot of people came after. It's like, I would have never read that research, but I feel so much better that we had someone to explain it.
Yeah.
And then we had Tony O'Reilly come, and he went through his whole experience and how gambling changed his life. And I'm sure that a lot of companies might say, no, no, we don't want someone like that with that profile to come. But it doesn't mean that I'm telling the company, listen, everyone will be like this, but let's just be aware of
Yeah.
what's out there. Let's have that conversation. Let's understand it. And I think that's the only way to go.
But it sounds like a very good addition to the inspirational insights, which are already happening, which mainly happen with people from lived experience or basically trainers, consultants. They come to the office and they teach, which, I mean, both are meaningful, but this is a nice addition to it. I mean, it's helping
Exactly.
to close the circle.
Exactly. And it can spark some, again, creativity, it can spark a bit, not the same every day. And then you'll have people more motivated.
So basically, the answer was to get back, I mean, to get back to the Reno model, right?
Technically, yes.
Right?
Yes,
It's
because it's very similar.
it's
Yes.
such an old concept, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's so still relevant. I mean, yes, it needs some sort of like dusting off for the current year, but yeah, I even find myself to be get into it quite often. So it should be more not that I shot a man in Reno, but I organized the conference in Reno.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think that we can conclude that.
Okay.
Thanks again for spending time with me and having a discussion. It was very lovely. I really enjoyed it.
Same
Hopefully,
here.
anyone who listens us or watches us will enjoy it as well. And yeah, it was great. Thanks, Maris.
Thank you.